General Hospital spoilers teaser. Since Jacinda's unexpected return to town, everything had shifted in a way no one could have predicted. Drew, already dealing with the immense pressure of the ongoing custody battle for Wiley and Amelia, had believed he was in control. The arrival of Jacinda, however, threw his well-laid plans into disarray. Drew initially thought he could manipulate the situation, using his influence and his power to force Jacinda into silence, thinking that she would be easy to control, just as he had done in the past. Confident in his ability to protect his carefully crafted image, Drew underestimated just how much Jacinda had changed during her time away. She was no longer the woman he once knew. She was determined, cunning, and prepared to expose every dark secret he had tried to bury. Jacinda's return wasn't just a personal vendetta or an act of revenge. It was a calculated mission to take down Drew and force him to answer for the lies and deception he had perpetrated throughout the custody fight. She had waited for the right moment to make her move, and when that moment came, it was devastating. Jacinda, fully aware of Drew's weak points, made sure to gather irrefutable evidence that would leave him cornered, unable to defend himself. The custody battle, which had already been fiercely contested, suddenly took an unexpected turn when Jacinda entered the courtroom. As the trial unfolded, she took the stand, and with one calculated statement after another, she began to tear down Drew's credibility. She exposed the lies he had told, the manipulations he had used to sway the court, and the deceitful actions he had taken to secure a favorable outcome for himself, no matter the cost. Her testimony was a bombshell that rocked the entire courtroom. Drew, who had walked in with a sense of confidence, soon found himself unraveling in front of everyone. The intricate web of lies he had so carefully woven over the years began to unravel piece by piece. Jacinda's words were sharp, each one cutting through the facade he had built, and they left him unable to regain control. What Drew had hoped would be a final, decisive victory for him turned into a humiliating defeat. Not only did Jacinda's testimony lead to his failure in the custody case, but it also shattered his standing in the eyes of those who had once supported him. His supporters, who had believed in his righteous cause, now began to question his integrity. The truth, once hidden in the shadows, was now out in the open, and there was no going back for Drew. The damage was done, and the public perception of him would never be the same. Meanwhile, Carly Spencer, as always, was willing to do whatever it took to protect her family. Her commitment to ensuring that her grandchildren, Wiley and Amelia, were in a safe and loving home was unwavering. As the situation escalated, Carly knew that she had to take matters into her own hands. She sought the help of Curtis Ashford, a man she trusted implicitly, to help turn the tide in this battle. Carly was determined to not only protect the children but also ensure that Nina and Drew, who had become increasingly dangerous in their pursuit of custody, would face the consequences of their actions. Curtis, despite his initial reluctance to get involved in such a high-stakes battle, recognized the gravity of the situation and agreed to help. He understood that if they did not act swiftly, their efforts would be in vain, and the children could end up in a toxic environment. Curtis's role in the case became pivotal as he worked behind the scenes to find Jacinda and convince her to testify against Drew and Nina. Curtis, knowing the power of financial leverage, made Jacinda an offer she couldn't refuse, double the amount Nina had promised her to testify. Jacinda, initially hesitant and driven by her own motivations, weighed her options. The chance for more money, along with the ability to destroy Drew and Nina's carefully constructed lies, proved too tempting to resist. With the agreement in place, Jacinda reluctantly agreed to help, setting the stage for her pivotal testimony. Curtis's plan was risky, but it was the only way to expose the truth and shift the momentum of the case in their favor. As the day of the trial arrived, tensions were high. Jacinda took the stand, and her testimony was nothing short of explosive. She described in vivid detail the lengths Drew had gone to in order to manipulate the system, from his secretive meetings with Nina to his use of underhanded tactics to control the narrative. Jacinda painted a picture of a man who would do anything to get what he wanted, even if it meant destroying those around him. Her words were sharp, calculated, and devastating. Drew, once so confident that he would win, was now faced with the full weight of his actions, and there was no escaping the truth. His credibility was shattered, and his case crumbled under the pressure of Jacinda's revelations. In the midst of this turmoil, Michael Corinthos, who had fought tirelessly for the custody of his children, found himself on the brink of victory. Throughout the battle, he had maintained a steady resolve, determined to protect Wiley and Amelia from the toxic influence of Drew and Nina. With the truth about Drew's manipulations now laid bare, Michael knew that the court would finally see the situation for what it was. His persistence and commitment to his children paid off as the judge ruled in his favor, granting him full custody of both Wiley and Amelia. It was a hard-fought victory, but one that Michael would cherish, knowing that he had done everything in his power to ensure his children's safety and well-being. Carly, too, felt a sense of relief and triumph. Her efforts to secure the children's future, along with Curtis's help and Jacinda's key testimony, had finally paid off. But as she looked at the outcome, she knew that the victory came at a high cost. Drew and Nina, once people she had considered allies, were now exposed for the deceitful individuals they were. The truth had come to light, and there was no turning back for them. As the court proceedings ended, Carly knew this was not the end of the story. It was only the beginning of the fallout from everything that had transpired. Drew and Nina would have to live with the consequences of their actions, and for Michael, it was the start of a new chapter where he could finally provide a stable, loving home for Wiley and Amelia. The victory in court had brought relief, but it had also shown just how far people were willing to go for power and control. The battle for custody had been one of the hardest challenges Michael had ever faced, but through it all, he had stayed true to his goal of protecting his family. As he looked at his children, now safe in his care, he knew the fight had been worth it. But the journey was far from over. The repercussions of Drew and Nina's deceit would continue to affect everyone involved for a long time to come. The custody battle had already been a fierce and emotionally charged ordeal, but it reached new heights of intensity when Drew was exposed in court. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Jacinda, having carefully planned her moment, took the stand and revealed the full extent of Drew's manipulations. But her revelations went beyond the surface-level lies and deceit that Drew had used to secure his case. What Jacinda uncovered was a deeper, darker history that connected Drew to Nina in ways no one had anticipated. The courtroom, already charged with the weight of the trial, now seemed to hold its breath as Jacinda pulled back the curtains on a web of corruption and betrayal that Drew and Nina had carefully woven over time. Jacinda's testimony didn't just focus on Drew's tactics in the custody fight, she exposed the very heart of his deception. She outlined how Drew, along with Nina, had conspired to control the narrative around their shared interests, using their positions of power to manipulate people and circumstances to their advantage. As she spoke, it became clear that the two had worked together in a covert alliance that had been designed to deceive not just the court but also everyone around them. These were not just simple lies, these were calculated, deliberate actions meant to undermine anyone who stood in their way. Drew's past, previously hidden from public view, was now laid bare for all to see. The revelation about Drew and Nina's collaboration came as a shock to everyone in the room. The deeper layers of their partnership, which had been shrouded in secrecy, were now exposed. Jacinda spoke about their secret meetings, their manipulation of evidence, and their careful crafting of false narratives to paint a picture of Drew as the perfect father figure. Their collaboration had been underhanded and deceitful, with both of them working to secure the children for their own selfish reasons, regardless of the emotional and psychological harm it caused those around them. The truth was undeniable, and it left everyone, from the judge to the spectators in the gallery, stunned. What was even more shocking was the impact these revelations had on Drew's family. His supporters, who had stood by him through the trial, were left in disbelief as they realized the extent of his dishonesty. His own family members, who had always believed in his integrity, now had to grapple with the truth that he had betrayed their trust in ways they could never have imagined. The damage to Drew's reputation was catastrophic. His past actions, now fully exposed, left him with no chance of reclaiming the moral high ground. His family was forced to confront the uncomfortable truth: Drew was not the man they had believed him to be. The fallout was swift and unforgiving. Drew's wife, who had been unaware of the depths of his deceit, was left grappling with a sense of betrayal that shattered their relationship. She found herself questioning everything she thought she knew about her husband. The impact on their children was equally profound, as the truth about Drew's actions left emotional scars that would take time to heal. The shame and embarrassment that swept through Drew's family were palpable, and they had to come to terms with the consequences of his actions. As Jacinda continued her testimony, it became clear that she wasn't just trying to ruin Drew's case, she was trying to expose the truth, regardless of the cost. She knew that by revealing Drew's dark secrets, she was taking a huge risk, but she was willing to do it for the greater good. The weight of the truth was heavy, and the courtroom felt the full force of it. Every word Jacinda spoke peeled back another layer of Drew's facade, leaving him exposed and vulnerable in front of everyone he had once trusted. With each piece of information that came to light, the case for custody grew stronger in Michael's favor. The more Jacinda exposed, the more it became clear that Drew and Nina's manipulations were the reason the children were at risk in the first place. Michael, who had been fighting for what he believed was right, now had the upper hand. The truth about Drew's actions gave him the chance to prove that he was the better, more responsible parent for Wiley and Amelia. As the trial came to a close, it was almost certain that Michael would emerge victorious. For Drew, however, the battle was over. He had been thoroughly exposed, and the damage to his credibility was irreparable. His past, once hidden away, was now a public record, and there was no escaping the consequences of his actions. The shame he had brought upon himself and his family was something they would have to live with for a long time. Drew's future, once filled with the promise of victory, now seemed uncertain and bleak. In the end, Jacinda's testimony was the turning point in the case. The truth, once buried under layers of deceit, had come to light. Drew's lies had caught up with him, and the courtroom had become the place where his world came crashing down. His family, his supporters, and even those who had been rooting for him could no longer deny the truth that had been laid out before them. Drew's manipulations had not only cost him his case but also the trust of those who had once believed in him. The custody battle may have been won, but the emotional toll it took on everyone involved would last far longer than any legal ruling. The consequences of Drew and Nina's actions were far-reaching, and they would be felt long after the final gavel fell. For Michael, however, the victory was bittersweet. He had fought for the right to be a father to Wiley and Amelia, but in doing so, he had witnessed the unraveling of a man he once considered a friend. The journey was far from over, and the scars from the battle would remain for all to see. Meanwhile, Michael had been tirelessly fighting for the custody of Wiley and Amelia, pouring every ounce of energy he had into securing their future. It wasn't just a battle for legal rights, it was a battle to ensure that his children would grow up in a safe, loving, and stable environment, free from the toxic influence of those who would seek to manipulate them. Each step of the journey had been fraught with challenges that tested his patience, resolve, and belief in what was right. The road had been long and riddled with obstacles. From the beginning, Michael was faced with overwhelming opposition, much of it coming from people he had once trusted implicitly. Drew, a man who had once been a close ally, had turned into one of his greatest adversaries in this fight. Drew's betrayal cut deeper than just a legal challenge. It was a personal attack on Michael's ability to be a father, something that had always been his top priority. But Michael refused to let the lies and manipulations of those around him determine the fate of his children. He knew the truth, and he was determined to fight for it, no matter the cost. Drew's underhanded tactics became more evident as the case progressed. He used every possible strategy to manipulate the legal system, painting himself as the perfect father figure, someone who could offer Wiley and Amelia everything they needed. However, Michael could see through the facade. He knew Drew wasn't acting out of love for the children but out of his own selfish desires. Drew's attempts to undermine Michael's character, to paint him as unfit, were nothing more than an effort to secure what he believed was rightfully his. Yet, every move Drew made seemed to backfire, as the truth about his motivations slowly began to unravel. On top of the betrayal by Drew, Michael had to contend with the constant scheming of Nina, whose obsession with her own agenda had led her to manipulate the entire custody case. She, too, tried to discredit Michael, but her involvement only served to expose her own lack of integrity. Nina's actions seemed to grow more desperate as she realized that Michael's determination was unwavering. His love for Wiley and Amelia was undeniable, and he would stop at nothing to protect them from the harm that Nina, Drew, and others had attempted to bring into their lives. The emotional toll on Michael was significant. Each day, he watched as his family, his reputation, and his future were put under a microscope. His every move was scrutinized by a public eager to see the outcome of the high-stakes trial. And though he tried to stay focused on the children's best interests, the stress of the situation began to weigh heavily on him. The nights were long, filled with anxiety about the unknown, wondering if he would ever be able to fully shield his children from the turmoil that had consumed his life. Despite all of this, Michael never wavered. He knew that in the end, he was the only one who could offer Wiley and Amelia the stability they so desperately needed. While Drew and Nina sought to tear the family apart for their own selfish reasons, Michael remained steadfast in his commitment to the children's well-being. It wasn't just about winning a legal battle, it was about proving to his children that they were loved and safe, no matter the obstacles that life threw their way. With each passing day, Michael grew more resolute, fighting not only for the legal right to raise his children but for the emotional right to be their father, to be the man who would guide them through life's challenges with unwavering love and support. His fight was more than just a battle in the courtroom, it was a fight for his children's future, for their happiness, and for their sense of security. Finally, after an arduous and emotionally draining trial, Michael emerged victorious. The judge, recognizing his deep love for Wiley and Amelia, as well as his unwavering commitment to providing them with the life they deserved, ruled in his favor. It was a moment of immense relief, not just for Michael but for everyone who had supported him along the way. His tireless efforts had paid off, and he had proven that, despite the odds stacked against him, he was the one who could offer his children the stability and love they needed to thrive. In that moment, as the weight of the battle lifted off his shoulders, Michael realized just how much he had endured for the sake of his children. Every late night, every tear shed in private, every moment of doubt, it had all been worth it. He had fought with everything he had, and in the end, it was his children who triumphed. Wiley and Amelia were now safe in his care, and Michael knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in their lives. The victory was sweet, but it was bittersweet as well. Michael's journey had been filled with pain, betrayal, and loss, but through it all, he had proven himself to be the kind of father Wiley and Amelia deserved. As they looked up at him, their eyes filled with trust and love, Michael knew that his fight had been worth it. He had proven not only to the world but to himself that he was, without a doubt, the best father for his children. Now, the future was brighter, and the scars of the past could finally begin to heal. Michael's victory was not just the outcome of a legal battle, it was a powerful affirmation of his unwavering commitment to his family. Throughout the grueling trial, he had faced deceit, manipulation, and betrayal from those closest to him, yet he emerged victorious. This triumph wasn't just about winning custody. It was a testament to his strength, resilience, and his unyielding desire to protect his children from the destructive forces that had tried to tear their lives apart. As he stood there, holding the legal documents confirming his custody, it was as if all the emotional weight he had carried for so long lifted off his shoulders. Michael had proven that no matter what anyone threw his way, he was the one who would always fight for his family. His children were his world, and this victory was his declaration that no one, not even those he once trusted, could ever break the bond they shared.